Hey everybody, it's Mace1370. I have a couple great RTA matches to go over today. Before we get into that though, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Okay, so the first match is against Melona. He's a well-known, really high-ranked RTA player who prefers playing, tanky units. I know he has a Sage Ball, so I pre-ban that, since Sage Ball is really strong in the meta right now and doesn't have a whole lot of answers. Melona pre-bans Landy, which is, I don't know if that's a new pre-ban for him, but I was not expecting that. He first picks Last Rider Crow, so I take Flurry and Blue Crow. I think these are good picks into LR Crow since, LR Crow's horse is going to do a lot of damage to Blue Crow and allow him to horse right back. And Falconer Clury is great against, tanky targets. So kind of predictably, I figured a Tywin would get picked up next since he's a really contested pick and I didn't take him. And there's the Spectre Tenebria as well. So I have to kind of decide here how I want to deal with this. I can plan on maybe banning out either the Spectre or the Tywin and shaping my draft around that, but that puts me in a position where I'm not going to be able to ban the later targets, or the later, picks from Melona. I take Aras here because I want an immunity buffer for a Tywin, in case I have to let him through. I figured this could just help keep me open, and I figure now I need to take a DPS. And I have both Blue Crow and Falconer Clury, so I don't think Rylet is an unreasonable pick here. Blue Crow and Falconer Clury are kind of the two biggest counters to Rylet, so I don't have to worry about them. Last Rider Crow is a bit of a counter to him because of the true damage, but he does less than Blue Crow does, and I specifically built my Rylet to have high HP so that he's able to take, a true damage hit. So if Melona doesn't draft, a lot more true damage, I can probably get away with letting the Last Rider Crow through into the Rylet. The way that I've shaped the draft, though, means that I don't really have a great answer to Spectre Tenebria, so I may have to ban her. So Melona takes FCC, so even more protection for Spectre, and then Assassin Coley. I was actually debating about taking Assassin Coley. I didn't feel like I had enough protection for her, though. Another pick I was considering here was Vivian to give me AoE and then also attack buff and immunity. But Vivian's pretty squishy, and I feel like whether I banned one of the DPS here, she would just die. So instead I take Basar, and my plan here is to let both of the DPS through and ban the Tywin. I have to ban Tywin here because if I leave Tywin in, he will cleanse away the Basar buff block. This way, if Basar does go through, and he does ban Rylet here, so even though I don't really have much DPS, I'm going to have buff block to deny him virtually all of his sustain from Fallen Cecilia, and push back the whole team, also potentially stun because Basar is on Abyssal Crown. So hopefully my sustain will be able to mitigate the damage and I'll be able to chip through the tanks. So looking at the speed tuning here, my Basar outspeeds the Assassin Coley, which is pretty huge. So that lets me use my bird on Fallen Cecilia. She's going to be my priority target to get down since she offers the most sustain on the enemy team. And then we're going to go ahead and use Basar's S3 here with the goal of getting buff block on everyone, most importantly on Assassin Coley, so that she cannot go back into stealth. So of course that doesn't happen. She 15%s the Basar, so she's able to skill 3 onto Basar, dealing quite a bit of damage to him, and then he 15%s her right back and doesn't get silenced. So fair is fair. So here I can use the S3 on my Aras to pop the Assassin Coley out of stealth. It also puts up defense buff, so we go ahead and I do that. Unfortunately, she is on the immunity exclusive equipment, which is I think the best one for her. The soul stealing one is also good, but I think it's a little on the greedy side. I do get a really lucky dual attack there from the Aras to strip away her immunity. So a bit of a luck sack in that moment. But she doesn't have buff block, so FCC is able to put a shield right back on her, so I think the Coley here is still pretty safe. Melona burns into the Last Rider Cow skill 3. I get a pretty clutch CR push on my Ras from Falconer Clury, So he's able to skip ahead, and now I can burn into his skill 2. And I want to go into the FCC here because I just need to get her dead as soon as possible, ideally before buff block wears off. That does pull in the Basar, so it gives him immunity, which is really nice since now Spectenny is not able to stun him. And you can see how strong that Rise of the Monarch shield is on Ras. That with the defense buff is giving me quite a bit of sustain. I get another dual attack, so I'm a dual attack gamer this time. Koli goes into Basar, who's still able to hang on. And Flurry is cycling pretty fast. Chipping away, and this time she gets another really clutch CR push on Blue Crow. So he's able to use his S2 and push back FCC. So that FCC is going to be deado. Here I can go into Last Rider Crow, and since FCC's on Aurea, she'll just take enough splash damage to probably die. And if not, Basar will definitely finish her off.
Let's get warmed up.
So here I'm debating about whether or not I want to use my skill 2. The Assassin Koli is under stealth, so I decide to hold it, and I think that's kind of a big mistake. Because both his Spectenny and the Assassin Koli are coming up, and he has souls to burn on Spectenny, so that was dumb. I should have just used it, even though it would have reduced the cooldown on Last Rider Crow for a turn. I don't think I was paying attention to the CR bar there, and I didn't realize he had so much damage coming up in a row, so Basar dies. Kind of a waste. But my Crow is in horse range now, so even though the 2 DPS targets are under stealth, I am able to horse onto the Crow. And now we can use Falcon or Clury onto the Crow to put defense break on him. He resists the provoke, but that doesn't really matter. The defense break was the important one. I burn into my Ras again just to maximize the amount of damage my team can do. And so now I just have to survive a few turns to be able to chip away at these pretty squishy DPS units. So I definitely got lucky this match, but I guess arguably he did too in the beginning with the Basar resist. So overall, a pretty good game. Okay, so the next match is against Zephyl. I have not fought him before, or at least I don't remember fighting him before, so I'm not sure what he does. I pre-ban Tea Time because she is oppressive and he does the same, so we agree on that. I get first pick and I take Falcon or Clury. I think she's a strong first pick in the meta right now, and the weaknesses you're going to find if you first pick her a lot is that she is weak to really aggressive teams or to cleave teams. She doesn't really offer any mitigation for your team, and she's not, you know, necessarily like the tankiest unit, so she can get overwhelmed by a really aggressive draft. The opponent takes Last Rider Crow, who can be built aggressively, you know, with Portrait, or can be more of a, you know, a defensive hero with some damage. So he can fit into either, you know, type of comp. And then Arbiter Vildred, so looking like more of an aggressive type draft from my opponent. Arby is a tricky hero to play against because he deals so much damage. You have to build your entire team around him. So one way of dealing with him is to, you know, take 2 counter picks. You have to take 2 because he does enough damage that if you only take 1 and you let RB through and the opponent bans that pick, then you're hosed. So if you want to just take, you know, 2 counter picks, that's one way of dealing with him. Another way of dealing with him is, you know, creating a team that is tanky enough to just weather his damage, you know, and outlast it, or to be able to survive through it, I should say. So I take Blood Moon Haste, since that's a really strong counter pick to Arbiter Vildred. And I decided to take another tank here. I could take either Fallen Cecilia or Blue Crow. I decided to take Blue Crow because he is good into LR Crow. FCC I think is good into RB, but I have the Blood Moon Haste for that. So I kind of want to diversify, you know, my responses. The opponent takes Basar, which I was anticipating, you know, with a Blood Moon Haste and Crow pick. Would have been the same if I took FCC. I knew the Basar was coming, and this is really like how these drafts go down is they take RB and then they take strippers with buff block, which is one of the reasons why I ban tea time. You know, if Basar gets his skill 3 off, he pushes back my entire team, which is crippling. He puts buff block, which is crippling, because when RB dies, I don't get the shields from haste. So that's kind of the deadly combo. So my options at this point are to just say, okay, I'm going to ban Basar no matter what, or I need to take some counter picks to him, which is hard to do because, you know, one of his counter picks is Holiday Euphine, but she's really bad into LR Crow. She's not horrible into Landy just because she has so much AoE, she can knock Landy out of stealth a lot, but I don't have a ton of damage on my team, and Holiday Euphine doesn't give a ton of damage on her own, so I don't feel like that's a good pick right now for this particular situation. I take Ambitious Tywin because this will allow me to let the Basar through, I think, and then I take F Maya. So F Maya is my second answer to RB, and I think she's, you know, reasonable here just because she does damage. Tywin is nice because if I let the Basar through, he'll cleanse away the buff block, which is really like the most crippling thing about Basar. And if the opponent bans the Tywin, then I still have Falconer Clury, who will probably outspeed the Basar, and I also have F Maya, who will cleanse the buff block off of herself anyways. So I think I can afford to let the Basar through in this scenario, which means that I'm going to ban the Landy because I don't have a great way of dealing with her. I don't have a ton of AoE. So I have to ban the Landy. This means that the opponent does get Flitica, who I guess could reset Tywin, but I'm not super concerned about that since Tywin is mostly here just to get rid of the buff block from Basar. He's also built on Bruiser, so he'll do some damage as well. My opponent's team is pretty squishy. ML Haste is on Idol's Cheer as well, which is nice, so that'll help, you know, counteract the pushback from Basar, as well as the CR push, you know, that the opponent will get from Flitica. Alright, so there's the S2, so my immunity is Gonzo. I think the opponent is deciding whether or not to Soulburn into Basar here. I'm not sure if he has a high, you know, effectiveness Basar. Looks like not, so he goes ahead and burns it. So here you can see with Tywin, that just cleanses away all of the buff block. And then the opponent gabs, which is no good. Although it will help my Crow Horse, that's for sure. That and then the Last Rider Crow. My F Maya gets a Elbrus proc, which is pretty huge. She chonks the Arbiter Vildred there a good amount, which means now I can rip my skill 3 from Tywin just to be able to kill the RB and then proc, you know, the revive and shields on everybody, which is pretty crippling for my opponent since these shields are massive. So I think they realize that they just don't have the damage anymore, and they concede.
Victory and honor are always mine.